My name is Sathish Vaidyanathan. I've traveled down here, not too far away. Traveled up here from Chennai, where I lead a team that is working on building PayPal's India domestic product. So we have two centers, one in Chennai, one in Bangalore, and just to introduce you to PayPal, a lot of you are probably already introduced very well to PayPal, but for those of you who may not have an opportunity to know who we are and what we do, PayPal is a global payments platform. So essentially, when you do a transaction online, offline, when you come to payments, that's where PayPal kicks in and enables payments between buyers and sellers. So we are actually a two-sided network, right? Unlike a gateway which actually just collects payments or collects your card details and processes a payment for a merchant, we are a two-sided network where we own both the buyer as well as the seller side of the network and ensure that we are able to provide great experiences for our buyers and sellers as well, right? By being in between, by facilitating a payment between a buyer and seller, we are also able to arbitrate risk, be able to provide better services, personalized services for both these ends of the coin, right, so to say. Again, we also provide payments globally. It's not just within certain countries. We operate in 200 plus markets. I don't know what that means because I don't know if there are so many countries where you can actually enable e-commerce, but that's how far we have gone in terms of enabling payments. And you can imagine how challenging it could be if you have to facilitate payments between one corner of the world to another corner of the world, all happening within a fraction of a second, but making sure that risk is taken care, service is taken care, latency is taken care, and eventually money moves from one person to another person. When somebody comes to a website, they're not really coming there to actually make a payment, right? They're actually coming there to buy their wife's a nice new watch or their dad's a nice new t-shirt, but they're not really coming there to make a payment. So why put so much friction about something that's not really emotional? So let's focus more on the emotional aspects of it and let the experts do the payments. And payments is actually becoming more and more ambient, wherein you don't even realize that you actually paid. You get out of the Uber, you actually already paid without even taking a wallet or a phone from your pocket, right? So that's how frictionless and seamless payments need to become so that the experience and the emotions are given more and more value. So today I'm going to talk about this topic called little bits of good. So this is essentially some of our personal experiences building products for PayPal globally, as well as my own experiences building products for PayPal in India, and focusing mostly on small things that you can actually do in order to create a large impact, right? So this, you all may have heard about this terminology called little bits of good, which was actually propagated by Desmond Tutu, and how you can actually assimilate a lot of good things in becoming something that's really, really large, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about a few things that we have experienced. Should not be earth-shatteringly shocking for you, but mostly common sense that we are talking about here. Okay, so experience economy. How many of you have heard this terminology called experience economy? Not many? Okay. So in fact, this terminology has been existing for over 20 years now. So where we moved from agriculture-based economy to industrial civilization to now we are all predominantly in experience economy, where great experiences would enable brands to prosper. Great experiences will enable money to move from person A to person B. So while we were starting to build PayPal, so PayPal, as you know, we have been operating globally, but then predominantly we have existed in emerged or developed countries, so to say. So most of our products we had to bring to developing countries or emerging markets like India there is a lot of things that we have to undo because the learnings that we get from the local markets were very different from what we have acquired over the many years that we have serviced global markets as well, right? So I'll quote a couple of examples as part of our follow me homes, where we actually go and do a lot of customer studies to ensure we are learning more from the customer before going and building products. There are two experiences that I wanted to narrate, which actually were very interesting. So one such example happened in Jaipur, where we went to the house of a person who was just out of college, maybe a couple of years into his professional career. And we said, okay, what kind of apps do you have on your phone, right? We just wanted to understand how he looks at his smartphone and how he gains value from the smartphone. So he did show a lot of apps, and we kind of, towards the end of the conversation, he said that I look at my phone as a real estate, right? I'm a real estate agent owning a phone, and every single app that is occupying this real estate is actually renting space on my phone. And hence, every app that I have on my phone needs to pay me something. I need to get something back from each of these apps in monetary sense or in terms of value. Otherwise, obviously I won't just have this app, because not everybody has, what do you say, humongous memory in their phones to put in multiple apps. So they look at every app to predominantly even provide monetary value back to them in order to host something on their phone. So that's the experience that he is looking when he is interacting with technology, right? The second experience is where we went to a house in Delhi, a homemaker. She does not own a credit card or a debit card. She relies predominantly on her spouse's cards to do transactions. And every time she does a transaction online, she gets this one-time password, and she has to actually call her husband if he's at his workplace, call him up, get the one-time password before she completes the transaction. So there are two reasons why she hates this experience. Because one, she has to bother her husband while he's at work. Number two, her husband will know where she's shopping, what she's shopping, and things like that, which she didn't want him to know always, right? So she was like, can you please do something about this, where I don't need to, my husband doesn't need to know what I'm buying, but I will still have the control of what I'm buying, where I'm buying, but the card can still be his, the money can still be his. I want to pay using his money, but I don't want him to know what I'm buying. So this is a different expectation or the experience that they're looking for when we are trying to enable commerce or payments, right? So I think if you go deeper into each and every customer story, there are multiple themes that keep emerging, right? So here what I want to kind of arrive at is the experience economy. What kind of experiences are we providing a customer will enable business, right? So the business will meet the customer only if the experience is really powerful and enriching, right? And kudos to this group of people who are actually day in and day out enabling those experiences at scale, and making sure that the right merchants are met with the right customers, the marriage happens in the proper way, so that economy can be propelled properly in the right direction, right? So we all have ambitious goals to have, like even for India, like a 5 trillion economy and things like that. So how do we actually go there without creating these enriching experiences for both the buyer and the seller? So the call out I wanted to make to this audience is focus predominantly on the experience. Technology will kind of somehow get it there, right? So as long as we know what needs to be done, the how and the what part of it can naturally follow. That's my experience, and then I would like all of you to think about building products from this perspective. Sorry, is it gone? Okay. I just wanted to kind of flash a slide on some of the research that our team in India has done in terms of understanding where the market is going. I just wanted to draw your attention to the boxed area. I'll read it out for you. It says 83% of mobile shoppers pay, pay a purchase via a mobile phone at least weekly. So if you're already a mobile shopper, you are more likely to buy something that week, right? 83% of them go back and buy something or the other every week. And 45% of the merchants have made mobile optimization a business priority in the next 12 months. So it's not just the user's behavior that's changing, but it's also the way that businesses think about rendering experiences to those users is also changing. All these businesses are focusing on tweaking every single element of the experience to ensure that they can derive maximum value from the user, right? So I think it is a big responsibility on the shoulders of the developer community, on the shoulders of the system integrator community, and also on the shoulders of big brands who are actually offering these products to ensure that there is heightened degrees of optimization when we are providing experiences, particularly for the mobile form factor and particularly for the population that is slowly getting into the digital economy, right? So there's not many people who have actually done an online transaction. So if you were to bring them on board into the online world, the experience needs to be smooth, seamless, and that's a big focus that we need to place. And this statistics actually augments the fact and augments that assumption itself. Okay. Okay, coming to the little bits of goods itself. This is the experience, right? Latency already. Hard press. This way or this way? This way, right? Okay, good. So, trust is a foundation. So, in order to keep people online, make sure that people can actually get great experiences online, trust is the main underlying aspect of any transactions to happen online. Right? So you don't really go and do a transaction if you don't really trust the product or the seller, right? So these are something that we take for granted, but what we don't do often is, are we offering the control along with the convenience? Because we focus on feature sets, we focus on convenience of how those feature sets are rendered, but the amount of time and investment that we make in terms of ensuring those the convenience also comes with the right set of control, both for the buyer and the seller, is something that I would like to encourage you to think about. And also providing explicit comfort messaging, because that's something people make assumptions when they're trying to do online shopping and say, okay, what if this does not happen? What if I have to return a product? What if the product comes broken? So explicit trust messaging is very, very key. So positioning these messages in the right portions of the flow itself is going to be important for you to take that user from the top of the funnel all the way to converting them into a transaction. So making sure these messaging happens is going to be very critical. Transparency of pricing is the other one. So that's another thing, right? Particularly from whoever is paying the fee, keeping transparent, consistent, and predictable pricing is going to be extremely important. And putting that pricing upfront instead of making it a surprise towards the end is also going to be extremely important. Also the clarity of post-transactional processes. Like I said, how do returns happen? How do return shipping happen? So creating that clarity and transparency is extremely important. Protection of purchases, this is another area where PayPal has pioneered a lot in terms of how do you protect a purchase. So if a buyer is buying from Argentina from a seller in India, what if something goes wrong with the transaction? How can we protect the transaction? How can we create the comfort factor for both the buyer as well as the seller, saying across the ocean, this transaction will indeed happen properly and you will be happy at the end of the transaction. So giving that seller protection and buyer protection kind of a experience is going to be very, very important in order to strengthen this foundation of trust. Okay. So the next one is the experience is the brand, right? So days are gone where people only go to websites or try to do shop online because of a brand only, right? So If you start planting simple surprise elements in your user experience, even if you are a nobody brand, you will be able to attract the user back to your website. Is what research has provided, right? Proved, right? So making sure that you plant those nice little things which the user is expecting to see in a given step of a transaction flow, and ensuring that it works the way that it is marketed, is going to be very, very critical. So even small brands can win returning customers by providing such great experiences. We have seen lots of great brands who are very, very small have taken over bigger brands because of the way that they are able to interact with the customer, and because of the way they are able to iteratively upgrade themselves to meet the changing customer needs, right? So having this in mind and saying, okay, how can the experience that I'm providing become the brand for the product? People may not relate or remember the brand, but people may remember the experience, right? So how do we do that is what we need to all aim for as well. Okay. Style does matter. So obviously I'm not a UX specialist, but then what we have learned from our experiences is making sure that we provide some consistent styling of all our flows is going to be very important, particularly from a mobile form factor. Having something like this, having very different types of logos and colors and everything, is going to end up confusing the user at the end of the day. So how can we provide simple, seamless ways to be able to allow the user to choose, make those choices, is extremely important, right? Styles provide consistency, and styles also indicate a sense of confidence, right? You know what you're doing, you know what you're asking the user to do, and then the engagement level of the user is a lot more amplified if you're able to provide that consistency and professionalism in the way that you style your websites as well, or your apps, right? So this again is something that most of us would have seen, and we do it time and time again at PayPal, is experimenting. So running experiments definitely gains a lot of confidence, because you do have a running business, you do have a hen that lays a golden egg. You don't want to provide new experiences which are really not fully tested. So creating an experimentation platform and having nice tools and configurability built into that experimentation will actually give you that power to experiment very quickly. So you can do very different things like running an A/B test, doing ramps, doing burst ramps. Normally we don't get so, if you don't get so much traffic to a certain experience, you just do a burst ramp for a few hours and then close it back, right? So to get enough data for you to act upon, right? So, but what also we do is we also ensure that we design experiments based on the need or based on the common sense, because there should be some rationale behind what you're going after the experience. Sometimes building these experiments could be very costly as well. You may spend 1 or 2 months to build out an experiment, but eventually it could even fail, right? Because you spend that 2 months of energy, but eventually it fails. So how do you kind of take these experiments in an iterative manner so you can actually throw it in small sprints instead of waiting it out for a long time to build it and test it, is very, very critical to think about as you plan your feature sets as well. And but last but not the least, it is also for us to allow choice so that users finally have control, right? So in this screenshot, what is depicted is thanks to the mobileoptimized.org, so the team that has built several such case studies. I would encourage you to go and visit their website. A lot of different case studies where you can go and look at these case studies as well. So basically in this case, by just automatically selecting standard delivery as the mode of shipping, they had come up with a 2% increase in conversion on this stage alone, right? So you still provide flexibility for the user to change, but you auto select something so that it is easy on the user. So this is another thing we learned the hard way. I personally learned the hard way. No feature is as important as your checkout conversion. So putting even 30 to 40% of your energy and time and resources into optimizing every single step of a checkout flow is extremely critical for the success of the business as well, right? So we do have very, what do you say, in our scenarios where PayPal does checkout conversion, we have different stages of the funnel. Each stage of the funnel has different subdivisions. So kind of the permutations and combinations of how many different things can happen during a checkout flow is simply overwhelming, right? So it requires a lot of focus, a lot of attention, a lot of planning to be able to cater to the big rocks, make sure those big ticket items are taken care of, and you slowly incrementally improve it, right? You can reach 99%, but 99 to 100 is going to be the toughest journey because it has a lot more variations and permutations. Also reducing the number of form fields. So instead of saying, okay, these are the fields that I need as a business to kind of take the user to the next stage, can you think of why the user should be providing that field in order for them to go to the next stage? So what is in it for the user for them to provide that field so before they go to the next stage, right? So if you just say enter your PAN number, instead can you say your PAN number is actually important for us to allow you to start accepting payments. So kind of giving the context for the user, at the same time trying to limit the number of form fields is something that we've learned, and that is something that we kind of continue to experiment in all our experiences as well. Latency is another important thing, particularly for most of you who are building products for global customers, like features for global customers. Latency is something that we don't really take too much, attention, right? We don't pay too much attention. So particularly for emerging markets where there is high constraint on the infrastructure, high constraint on the mobile network, or even the comprehension that the user has in terms of how to understand a certain experience. When a spinner happens, some people don't even know what that means, right? We've had people who clicked the trash can icon and came back to us and say, we didn't know what that meant, but then when I deleted it, it's gone. I mean, I clicked that it went, right? So we can't assume that people will know things. So it's important for us to create those understanding of the customer, and solving for the latency of the globe is going to be a common denominator across any product set, right? Because if you want to get the next wave of large new customers coming in, you need to go and penetrate these infrastructure constraint segments of the customers in order for them to also come into this global economy. So this is an experience that I've shown here to the left, is what PayPal has, which is called PayPal's One Touch. So it is very simple. When we have been doing checkouts for a very, very long time, and every single time when somebody has to click the pay button, we actually took them to a login experience, and then they log in and then they choose a card and then they finish the transaction. So what we did with One Touch is we completely skipped the entire login step itself. So can we do, we innovatively created some sort of a cookie-based algorithm, but to detect the user, to make sure the fraud is taken care of. So it's not just to log in the same user, right? It's very simple to do that, but making sure that there is no fraud pattern around that particular experience, and eventually really giving them a one-touch checkout is what we have built. So by building this experience, we have experienced something like an 88% checkout conversion rate, because we paid so much attention in building fraud controls around this one-touch experience, that eventually really leapfrogged us from like 3 or 4 step checkout flow to almost a 0-step checkout flow. So that's something that we've been experimenting quite a lot, and I believe that these kinds of skipping steps is going to become the norm in the future as well. Instrumentation unlocks mystery. This is again something that I don't need to preach to the choir, but given the number of places where data comes from, number of customers who use your products very differently, you'll be surprised to know that consumers may use your product very differently from how you actually designed the particular product. So it is important to instrument every single click, every single event, not just from the backend side, but also from the client side events, right? How do you instrument everything is going to be very critical. Um, we also need to rely on trends, not just simple data points. Like if you just take a data point for a certain time of a day or certain set of transactions, you are going to work on a very statistically insignificant set of data, and hence it's critical to look at patterns also to get more value out of the instrumentation data. There is also concerns that, okay, how much is the right level of instrumentation? Like, are we instrumenting too much? Are we gathering everything which we may not know? Then there will be a lot of noise in the data for us to be able to extract the right insights from the data. So I think you should start with a bigger funnel of instrumentation and then slowly look at how you can reduce the number of fields you instrument, which are very critical and important for you to make a decision, right? So it's an iterative process. There is no one answer to how much you should be instrumenting, but you can start broadly and then slowly narrow down how much you want to instrument. Data tells the story. So essentially, we have all this data, right? How do you know what story is the data telling? What actionable insights is this providing? What kind of product feature changes can I go and implement by looking at this data is also a very significant step in this whole journey, right? So we kind of invest a lot of time in building dashboards, like having several dashboards at a business level, at a product level, at a system level, will give you a big picture of what is happening at each level. Like, is a business metric going down corresponding to the same time or same time we pushed a product change, or a technical system was down? Or how do you correlate everything without having dashboards like this, right? So it's very, very important to have dashboards. This is a screenshot of a merchant insight dashboard that we provide for our merchants, right? And it comes from the data pertaining to that particular merchant, so the merchant can know a little bit more about what they are doing, how is their business doing. We have provided insights to merchants because of the data we collect. For those merchants, we're surprised by looking at it. Okay, I didn't know that people from this country are frequently buying from me. I know there are some transactions that come from. Looks like I need to beef up my marketing effort into this country because I'm under leveraging that particular user base, right? So it gives you great insights both for marketing as well as product selection on your cart, on your portal, as well as the services that you want to provide. Everything can be lined up if you have great visualizations in place as well. So this is the last slide. I think the ticker is going 43. I'll take one more minute because of the ticker issues, but then only business outcomes matter. Technology is just an enabler. We know we're all developers, we're all engineers. We want to get the coolest and greatest of technologies, but that doesn't matter, right? What if you built the most awesome, innovative technology to build a product, but eventually it doesn't work, right? So business outcomes do matter. So it's very important to be empathetic to the business, to the customer, to see that what you're building actually really adds value, and it's not only for our personal satisfaction that we are building something, right? So I just want to plant that thought in front of this audience as well. Quickly, two more slides. A collaboration between PayPal and Magento Commerce. We have global presence, transforming experience globally for all our e-commerce user base. Again, both these companies are community oriented as well. So like how Magento has a community, PayPal has a community of developers on all our payment integrations as well. Highly performance driven, like I said, looking at data, looking at application performance, security, efficiencies, looking at all aspects of it so that the ecosystem can go as fast as it can by making all these things happen under the hood. So what's coming? So PayPal is heavily investing in India on collaborating with our system integrators. You will now have local people that can work with you in India itself without having to go to our global counterparts across the world. So you can work with local teams in India to get your system integration queries and requirements addressed. We're also trying to open up a partner portal. It's coming soon, but we will probably, once we launch, you will get to hear more about it, but please do look out for it. So we have a booth. Some of you might have visited the booth already. You can email us to channelpartners@paypal.com. That's a mail ID if you want to reach out to us for any of your queries. And we also have a fireside chat at 4:15 run by Naveen Mistry, who is a part of the PayPal's India business team. So he is going to talk to a couple of merchants to understand their experiences so that they can share their experiences with you. So please don't miss that session as well. It's at 4:15 p.m. this afternoon. All right. Thank you so much for your time.